Welcome to Serves You Right, a podcast for people who work in the service industry. My name's Andrew, and I've worked in restaurants for over 20 years, and I am trying to answer some fundamental questions for myself. This is a place for servers, bartenders, chefs, anyone and everyone who's ever felt stuck in the restaurant industry, fired up, or just plain wants to do something else. So I'm trying to answer a question that occurred to me a couple years ago, whether or not you can actually be happy working in the restaurant industry. I still don't have that answer, but I'm exploring different avenues, different things that might help you, things that interest me, but all in all, I'm just trying to figure it out. So I've seen the burnout, the addiction, the passion, the grind, as we all have in the restaurant. I've talked to dozens of people from every corner of the service world, bartenders, chefs, authors. I've also gone outside of the restaurant world, trying to find people that are into the mindfulness game, what it would take to be a programmer, and anything in between. So if you ever felt like there's got to be more than this, what is going on? Why am I still in a restaurant? This show's for you. So let's figure it out together. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening. Today, we have Dr. Shalini Bahl, a mindfulness expert, author, researcher, and a marketing PhD. One of the reasons I actually sought her out. Expect to hear how to bring mindfulness into your day-to-day life, busy environments, think restaurants, bars, and any other time where mindfulness could actually do some good for you. We talk a lot about what it takes to live in the present moment, what it means to be on autopilot versus actually being there, what the power of an intention is. Very, very powerful conversation today, and without any further ado, let's jump right in it. You know, I love what you do. I did have a question. How does someone who's in marketing get into mindfulness? Because I thought that was super interesting.
Yes, and I actually also teach, I'm going to go backwards. So I teach mindful marketing. So I didn't completely ditch marketing, and I still do research on mindfulness in marketing. And for many people, that's kind of like an oxymoron. Like, what does it mean for a marketer to be mindful? Because marketing is all about getting people to buy more and get addicted to their products. And it does at the worst end. At the good end, marketing is about helping people meet their needs in a way that's going to benefit the company, it's going to benefit the employees, it's going to benefit our environment. So that's the end that I focus on in marketing, is how can we, instead of working on same old ways of doing things, how can we be present to our values, to what our passions are, our interests are? Just like you, Andrew, you are working in a restaurant, but you also have a podcast. And so it's about connecting with what makes you come alive as a marketer. And then from that place of passion and interest, showing up to work for your clients, for your company, and so forth. So I teach that now with the focus being on mindfulness. And how I got into it was I was on a track to be a PhD in mindfulness. Sorry, in marketing, not in mindfulness, in marketing.
I was very interested, yeah.
Yeah, no. I started off as a regular PhD student in marketing, but very early on in my journey, I had started some contemplation because of personal reasons. I had been through several divorces. I'm from India originally. I'd left my country to start afresh with my young son. So there was a lot of personal issues that I was dealing with, and so I landed into mindfulness for my personal journey. And then there was a big breakthrough I had through a shamanic journey, which I'm not going to get into. We can do another whole episode on that. And that was in Costa Rica. But that basically just cut through many layers of my belief system, conditioning, who I thought I was. I grew up in Kuwait with a lot of brands and, trying to be something, do something based on what people had told me I should be. That's what success looks like. But in that shamanic journey, I sort of got to see the dark side and go into the tunnel, really the darkness. And and at the end of the tunnel, through that very uncomfortable journey of seeing the dark sides and all of that fear and everything, when I surrendered, I got in touch with something that was much deeper, more silent still than my chatty mind telling me, you're not good enough, or do this, do that. So that was my big breakthrough that happened, and that really changed the trajectory of my marketing PhD. I didn't give up on PhD, but I was going in doing stuff like regular marketing topics, so privacy and technology, but I shifted to marketing from consumer behavior, looking at self-awareness. How do consumers make decisions in the marketplace? How can we enhance consumer well-being? So that got me moving in that direction. And then life slowly kept pushing me. I had a regular, I graduated, got published, my dissertation got published in a top journal. And all of those things were falling in place. But I somehow life kept pushing me into no, no, no. There are enough marketers out there teaching marketing. What the world really needs is mindfulness. And so at some point, I had at the crossroads, and whether I want to pursue a marketing academic career full time, or do I want to go into mindfulness? And I chose mindfulness.
Mhm.
And and so I got my certifications at the UMass Medical School in mindfulness. And I wasn't a full time academic anymore, but I kept pursuing research because I wanted to introduce this idea of we can do marketing in a way that's different and not just based on selling more, getting people addicted. And yeah, so that was.
For sure. Yeah. No, I saw when I was doing some research on you, I think you,
Mhm.
let me see, I want to get this right. It was going from is it mindfulness versus mindless consumption? And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was a
Mm,
great phrase. um,
yeah.
so so I'm gonna kind of twist this from my perspective. So I
Hmm.
don't have the opportunity to get a shaman. Work a busy job and I don't have any aspirations to get certifications like you may have. How could I start living in a more mindful way?
Hmm.
I know that's pretty
Yeah.
broad, but
Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah.
Let's just start. And there are many entry points to that. And my focus is really now on how can people in their everyday lives, with their busy lives, return to that place within them that is present, that is connected with themselves first, with your gifts, with your passions, interests, and stay connected with that place of awareness throughout our day. So it starts with an intention. And the so intention of how do you want to show up. Now when I teach mindful marketing, I get students to first write down their personal statement of what there's a process I do with them. And but the basic idea is to make time. How much time do we ever take to sit down and see what is really important to me in my life? As opposed to what you've been told over social media, your education, your culture, your friends, your parents, expectations that you have. And many of them may be what you value. That's okay. But often I found, at least in my own life and having worked with so many people now, is that there are parts of us that we never got to connect with because we never took the time.
Mhm.
So, starting with an intention of, I want to live this one life fully, get the most out of it. So, I don't think of mindfulness as something as just blissing out on the top of a mountain or being completely peaceful. And no, it's about jumping into all of life with open eyes, wide open, hearts open, minds open, so that we really do start appreciating the gift of this life at this point of time, even though there's a lot of chaos in the world and maybe in our personal lives and socially, politically, there's a lot of unrest. But even in the midst of all this craziness, there is a lot of goodness as well. So,
Mhm.
how can we tap into that goodness for ourselves first? And then the more we feel connected with that goodness in ourselves, we can start sharing that and creating ripples of goodness around us. So I still haven't really answered how
No,
to
no,
do
that's
that.
I
that
think you're
was the
getting to
broad.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting them. But that was
Yeah.
like the broad idea. What do we mean to be mindful? And so starting with an intention, so making time for yourself, like even if it's 5 minutes, when you drink coffee in the morning, or maybe you're taking a break in between, take some like maybe 5 minutes to, preferably if you have access to nature. I think that's because nature and trees are all present, they're in the present moment. So that surrounding allows you to then also be connected and be present. And then you can start journaling or reflecting on what are the things I value in my life.
Mm.
And and then it's a question of, because mindfulness, the way I define it, is our innate ability to see things as they are and to live intentionally, to act on those insights, on that clear seeing, and on our values, our intentions, to live intentionally. So the opposite of that is we're living mindlessly, which
Mm.
is on autopilot. And there's enough research showing that up to 95% of your daily decisions are being made on autopilot. So you wake up, close the alarm, get your coffee, your morning beverage, what you're gonna
Mm.
wear, gonna go to work, same people. As soon as you're in that environment, your same motions start happening. What you do, who you're gonna talk to, what you're gonna say, hi, how's it going? All of this is, if you really think about it, is just happening like a recording.
Yeah.
So mindfulness, that's mindlessly living, mindlessly sleeping through our lives. And the opposite of that is where we keep returning to this capacity in us to be present. So when you go to your workplace, instead of just, hey, hi, how's it going? You actually connect. Even it
Mm.
doesn't have to take long, but just that eye contact, just the body posture, just your mind being here with your body, with your breath, and the intention with which you're going to approach your work.
Mm.
So, how do you want to show up for your work? And whatever
Mhm.
it is, like, so for me, before I start any project or before I go teach, I take a few moments to just connect with my intentions for how I want to show up for the people that I'll be teaching. So for me, it's more like, may I be of service to the people who are there? May we all live, not live, maybe we all learn together and connect with what is important. So whatever, like now I'm rambling, but
No,
whatever
no,
it
no.
is, but whatever it is, so like giving myself some time to connect, because if we don't do that,
Mhm.
we go into autopilot. Often it is based on wanting to impress people, like as a
Mm.
teacher or as as a public speaker. I can go into that mode of like, are people really liking what I'm saying? Are they enjoying it? Are they going to buy my book? Are they going to join my, so the motivation is external, and that's not what really gives us joy, is that external outcome. Yes, if I sell more books and classes, I will earn
Mhm.
more and I'm able to afford this lifestyle. So I'm not discounting the external benefits. But the other side is when I'm coming from a place of connecting with what do the people need and focusing on the people. So the same thing could translate in a restaurant, as opposed to going through the day and just doing what you're supposed to do. If you really like, we're focusing on how can I bring joy to every person who comes. People are coming troubled, they have suffering. And so, if we can recognize that every person here has some story and some suffering, and how can I make their day just a little bit better? If that is a focus, that shifts the way we're going to pay attention, we're going to show up versus, oh, it's another long day, another 8 hours of,
Mhm.
XYZ.
For
So
sure.
setting, yeah. So that's the one thing I would tell people is make time to set an intention for yourself and before you do anything, and you can keep returning to that intention. So
Sure.
that's one thing.
So, yeah, I kind of want to unpack that a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
so I have a morning practice where I do just usually 5 minutes of meditation, but I don't really do intentions there. It's more focusing on my
Mm,
breath.
right.
Which
Mm,
has helped me in ways that I'm not even able to really articulate, but I think that it is something. It's like background presence, maybe, or maybe
mm-hmm.
I'm just like a baby mindful practitioner, just beginning my progress. but I go into the day to day of life. And so the restaurant I am general manager of, it's a steakhouse. And so
Mhm.
there is a sense you show up to work and you have 100 guests coming and they're all going to get a steak. And so
Mhm.
there is a way that you can easily just kind of mechanically, like, you show up to the
Right.
guest and is it a filet or a ribeye? And then we serve them
Right.
the steak and they smile and they say it's cooked right. And like,
Mm.
I definitely, I feel that, uh, that you called it, I think it was unconscious, but just sort of that like repetitive nature of life that,
Right.
but there is a sense where my best days are the few days that I actually get to see the guest or like I see the person
Mm.
behind the just typical interaction that I normally have. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think, and I'm not saying it well, but I think where I'm trying to go is how do I make that every day? Yeah,
Mhm.
what are the levers that I can pull to make that even more consistent
Right.
where I'm more present? But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, no. So thank you for bringing up your morning practice. So I went
Mhm.
straight into the intention because that is the piece in the secular world of mindfulness that's not emphasized enough. Like you said, I don't know if I set intentions, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So the way the original teachings of mindfulness were as a practice. So mindfulness can be our innate capacity to be present. Like right now, hopefully, we are connected even through Zoom miles away, but we are present with each other in a non-judging way where we're not like caught up in that, or rather, judgments will be there automatically. You're judging me. I agree, don't agree. And the listeners will be like, oh, what is she talking about? And there will be judgments, but we're
Mhm.
not allowing our judgments to hijack our awareness, our presence. So we're taking it all in. So that is the first step is of being present, of being aware, and that's an innate capacity we have, but we forget to do, like you said, in the morning, I'm present in my breathing practice. But then when you're in work, we revert back to our default habits and
Mm.
biases.
The
And so
invoices
that
have to be paid. Yes, we've got to
yeah.
go. Yes.
Yeah. And so doing
Yeah.
that is fine. There's repeated work and you don't want to have to rethink it every time. So we automate it. But what happens is the brain doesn't just automate what should be automated, it automates all of life. Your love
Mm.
life, your relationships, your, even the moments where we have opportunities to really connect as humans, to create, to imagine, to do all of these things, we're automating, and creativity doesn't happen on automation. Love
Mhm.
doesn't happen on automation. So, um, where was I going with this? Was that we have that, so we have awareness, but our default habits get in the way. So, which is why we need a practice to strengthen that awareness that gives us choice. Do I want to go on autopilot right now? Yeah, I'm doing accounting. I can do that. I can listen to music and do my accounting.
Mhm.
Or this is an important conversation. This client, even though it's another steak down the, whatever, but this person is a human being who has his life and her life, and this moment could change their day for them. So if we keep that in mind, we can show up with just more connection. You don't even have to do that much more, but it's just your energy, just your presence, your eye contact, your voice, that there'll be more like people can feel that a person is present, or are they, just kind of going through the motions.
Mentally
So
filing their taxes or yeah.
yeah, exactly. So now to be that way in the middle, to take that practice in the morning that you had, the meditation practice, or for some of the people, it might be yoga, whatever your practice is, how do we translate that into every day?
Mhm.
So the practice itself, we need a practice, and the secular practice is focused on training the mind towards focus, whether you're focusing on your breath or your body. It could be mindful walking. So there are many practices built to train the mind to regain control over our awareness. And that is only the first step, though. The second step is once we are aware, what do we do with that awareness? So people would come to me, okay, now I'm aware that I am angry. And what do I do now? What do I do with that
Yeah.
anger? Or I'm really frustrated with that client. So I'm really aware. I'm breathing and I'm really aware that I'm frustrated with this client. And I should be kind, I should be nice. So there are a lot of shoulds that come in.
Mhm.
And but what is missing then is once we're aware, that's the first step, then we create space for intentions, for insights, for understanding. So that it's not about shoulding, it's not about I should do this and that, but it's more like, okay, now that I'm present to my frustration, now I can invite some space for understanding and insight and wisdom. So,
Mhm.
what is going on for me? Oh, yeah, I've had such a tiring day today. Okay, so if that's the case, then you can bring that empathy for yourself before you even think about the client or customer. You'll be like, okay, you know what? You've had such a hard day, go you. And you can do some self motivation for yourself.
Mhm.
And then you can return to your intention. Why do I do this work? Or what do I care about in this job that I do? There's obviously one thing besides the money. Hopefully there is one thing. And
Yeah.
if there's not even that one thing, then you do need time to figure out what path you should be on. And sometimes we are forced to do things. I don't want to say that everyone has to love and be passionate about everything they're doing,
Mhm.
because at times where we're just stuck in a place.
A
And
job
so
can be a job. Yeah.
yeah. And so, even in that case, try to find something that you can love within
Mhm.
that space. Now that I'm stuck here, let's say life has brought me here and I don't see any other option for work. So, within what I'm doing, is there something that I can um, love about that?
Mhm.
It could be the food I get to eat afterwards, or I don't know. Tell me, like,
Well,
so what are some of the things that people
yeah.
can
I mean,
love about a restaurant, working in a
people
restaurant?
people love working in the restaurant for a couple reasons.
Uh-huh.
Flexibility is one of the big ones
Uh-huh.
because very few jobs in the modern world can you
Mm.
work 2 shifts a week for a couple weeks and then 6 shifts a week to save up for a vacation and go right back to two.
Ah,
So,
right.
and then
So yeah.
excitement is a big one because you never know
Mm.
what you're walking into. Every person
Right.
is different.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So curiosity can be a big mindfulness skill to
Hmm.
develop in your business, which is like curiosity is what disrupts our confirmation bias, which is about just seeing things that we already believe, or so it disrupts that and allows us to see everything with a sense of awe and wonder. So you can just even doing that, like, I'm just curious about all the people who are coming in and noticing them. And then when you notice more, then you may be able to respond better to their needs, anticipate their needs, and be able to do that. And I know there's like a lot going on. There are 100 people. Like, are we able to do that for every person? What does that mean? But like I said, it's about the intention. So
Yeah.
if you move coming with that intention to see, maybe it's just something simple as, I don't know, noticing that. Tell me something. What could be like? I'm trying to think. Like, okay, so for us, I was in India, and one of the best hotel chains there is Oberoi.
Mm. Okay.
And it started local. It was started in the, I don't know, 40s or 50s by a guy, and his philosophy was to anticipate people clients' needs, and it's become like the best. It's like the most costly. It's like the Ritz-Carlton of India, kind of, and they're abroad too in other countries. And recently, I got to experience that, and I was just blown away by their service and how they anticipate, and that is their philosophy. It's like, but to anticipate, you have to be curious and open.
Mhm.
You have to be seeing, observing. So anyways, all that to say that it starts with an intention, and intention is what connects our morning practice, which is okay, I'm going to go back. I
Sure.
didn't complete
Yeah.
the practice. Okay, the practice includes training the mind with meditation, um, yoga, or awareness of breathing. Even swimming could be, running. So the first part of the training of the practice in mindfulness is to train the mind, so you have more agency over where you want your mind to go. The
Hmm.
second part, once we feel that our mind is more stabilized and present, is to then cultivate understanding about the situation, about yourself, and what are your intentions, values, what are the possibilities, and And then that gives you insight into the situation. And then the third part is acting on that. Because in the morning, your meditation might be like, oh, I'm going to show up. But when you go back to work, the default habits that you have developed over 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 years
They come
is
back.
gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna pull
Mhm.
you back into that. So in that moment, it's that intention of returning to your intention to
Mhm.
return to your intention and values and
Yeah.
how you want to show up. So action. So the third part is skillful actions in the world. So throughout the day, you are returning. That's why I call the book Return to Mindfulness, which
Mhm.
is not that you have to go out there and do something special to be mindful. All you have is the intention, okay, returning to yourself, to your values, to your presence again and again. And so you're aligning your thoughts, your speech, and your actions to how you want to show up in the world.
Well, I do have a follow up about that
Uh-huh.
actually. So
Yeah.
one of the things that actually strikes me as the hardest, and I'm guessing other people probably think this too,
Mm-hmm.
emotions. Like
Mm.
you mentioned earlier, like you notice you're frustrated, and so the disconnect for me is, I'll have that mindful presence, or at least I think, and then I get to work and something annoying
Mm-hmm.
happens, or a
Mm-hmm.
guest is upset about something, and like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like emotions are so sticky that sometimes they grab you
Mm.
and it's hard to get past that
Mm-hmm.
irritation and come back to that intention. Do you have any experience with that or any tips, tricks that
Oh,
you might yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you're nodding,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping so.
Yeah, 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 absolutely 100%. And I'm just thinking, what is the best way? Maybe let me give you an example, and
Mhm.
then we can dissect that example and see what were the pieces that were missing or what went into it. So when
Mhm.
I decided to join town council, which is a political position of going through the election process, and I'm not a political person at all, and I'm an immigrant too from India, so I knew very little, next to zero, about town politics. But there was a lot of controversy and whatnot. So people put my name in. I'm like, okay, sure. I meditate. I'm like, okay, maybe I have a chance to bring mindfulness into politics. Already done that with marketing. Now let's do here. So the first political debate that I went for, I went really prepared. I'm a researcher and I'm like really hard worker. So I did prepare for the questions and whatnot. But when I went there were going to be six people running alongside me. And so we're out there, and I could feel my anxiety rising that there are 100 people here who are going to ask us all kinds of questions about politics. And what am I going to do? And I have prepared really well, but I was like, so I did my deep breathing. So that's the first thing we do, is because that breathing is known to put a brake to the amygdala hijack, or basically amygdala is your emotional part of the brain. When it sees a threat to your competence, to your goodness, any kind of threat, it sends, basically it acts like a tiger, and it
Mhm.
sends a brain like, tiger, tiger. So
Yeah.
you kind of
Fight or flight
fight or flight
scenario.
kicks in,
Yes.
and then when that happens, you're not thinking very clearly, because going back to when we were hunter gatherers, when there was a threat, all we had to do was either run for our lives or we had to fight. And so there's no thinking like, oh, what should be the strategy here? Or let me figure this out. No, it's a fight or flight situation. But in the present day, there are no tigers. But our brain is still sending signals to the rest of the body. The heart is pumping blood to the limbs. We're breathing faster so that we can fight or flight. And that's not always helpful. So to disrupt that, the first thing to do when you feel a trigger is to breathe.
Okay.
So just connecting and not thinking, really sensing the breath moving in and out of your body. Then once you're calmer, that's what I did not do in that situation. So I was calm, and then I'm like, okay, now what does it mean to be mindful? What does it mean to be mindful? This was earlier before I wrote the book and went in deeper. And I was like, okay, I've done my breathing. I'm feeling a little better, but it's still lurking down there. That emotion hasn't fully gone away. It's less aggressive, but I'm still not feeling confident and competent in this situation. So I kind of just faked it. So, and I did what I could. I was fairly good. People came to me, oh, you were really good. But my campaign manager came to me and said, you were not yourself. And he was right. because I wasn't. When I'm myself, I am more authentic and people can feel it. But here I was like more, contrived answers and trying to do my
Mhm.
best. So the next in meditation, I looked at what happened, what was missing. And I did my breathing, I calmed down, I was quiet, I was in control, but what was missing? And it was the second piece. So once we're calmer, we can look at what is the emotion we're feeling, labeling it. Okay, there is anxiety or there's frustration. Once you label it, rather than jumping to fix it, which is the other habit we have, is okay, what do we do? No, you have to make room to feel the emotion and see what are the thoughts underlying that. So make room without judgment to, okay, what is lying? So when I paid attention to my thoughts, thinking about that anxiety and what was really going on, is I had the thought that I have to impress people there. I should know all the answers. How can I be more like Erin, who knows all the answers? I was comparing myself. So there were all these thoughts. Now, without looking at these thoughts, they're there and creating self doubt, disconnecting me from my intention. And so, what was missing in that moment was an understanding of what is that emotion telling me. And the emotion
Mhm.
was telling me that you are trying to be somebody else and you need to impress everyone. Once we see that, then I can disrupt it and say, okay, I'm not here to impress. I'm not running politics to win or to impress people. I'm doing this to really show up for people, to listen to them, what are their concerns, and then based on my skill set, find solutions for them. So then in the future, I had moved away from my intention, right? So my intention is to bring mindfulness in politics, but what was I doing there? I was trying to impress people. And so when I see that misalignment, I can come back to that and come back to then what does that look like is showing up, listening, and connecting. And if I don't know an answer, it's not the end of the world. I can tell people, I really don't know. And that's a great question. Let me go and figure it out and I'll come back to you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, do you see how that could be translated in your situation when you are frustrated with a client? And so, once you breathe and you calm down, and then you look at the causes and conditions for the frustration. And it
Yeah.
may be different. In some
Hmm.
situations, it may be you because you were exhausted yourself that day. So, your bandwidth for dealing with customers is called the ego depletion state. That is when we've used up our cognitive resources, maybe towards the end of the day or end of your shift, when we're already feeling depleted. Even the smallest trigger can make us sort of
Set you over
react.
the line. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So, in that situation of ego depletion, again, because you don't have the
Mhm.
resources to handle, you could see, okay, recognize I am so exhausted. One is coming back to your intention, your love for what you do. That always gives me energy. Like, okay, I'm here to serve people. And if I can help someone in this situation, so be it. Right. So
Yeah.
that is my internal motivation. And it helps me move through that ego depletion state rather than, oh, I should be, because should requires more resources, willpower, self control. This requires more resources that you don't have over there.
Connecting with that inner intention, that inner purpose
Yeah.
that you have. Okay.
Yeah, but connecting with who you are, with love, with passion, with interest, with care, that does not take much energy or
Hmm.
resources. And that's actually energizing. So you see the difference between self-control, willpower, like, oh, I need to
Hmm.
control my anger. And that's
You
what we're
white
all
knuckle
taught.
your way to mindfulness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
Right. And that doesn't
Okay.
always work because you're just suppressing your emotions rather than letting them surface and listening.
Hmm.
Emotions are my friends. They're telling me something is off. So you
Yeah.
have to befriend your emotions and see what are the thoughts, and then you can do something. Once you know what is your deeper source of frustration, then you can respond.
So what, and at the risk of making this like a therapy session, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole fully, but
Yeah.
uh, so I think I'm probably a good stand-in for a lot of the male listeners out there where, you know, I feel like I am somewhat evolved, but I don't have the best like emotional vocabulary or connection with my emotions, the ability to speak through
Mm-hmm.
them. If you ask my wife, she'd probably say that too. Uh, so how do you get better at sort of diving in and figuring out what those underlying feelings are? Is it just something that takes practice, or?
Mm, that's a really good question. It does take practice, and the more we make time for it. But I would also encourage you to, have you ever taken a class with a teacher,
Um,
a live
I mean,
mindfulness teacher?
oh no, no. I was like, I've taken many classes, but
Classes.
not like
Yes, yes, I
mindfulness.
am
Yes,
educated.
yes. A
But
mindfulness class
mindfulness.
now.
Yeah, so I really encourage people. In fact, I wrote a brief article on Substack. So my Substack is called Sama Life, and Sama is Sama, and Sama means skillful, which is the opposite of mindless or unskillful. And so in that, I wrote why apps and articles and books are not enough to be mindful. And apps and books can help you once you have learned from a live teacher, whether it's, and now it's on Zoom. And by the way, I am offering a class online. But
Yes, we'll talk
just
about that, I'm
plug
sure.
in. Yeah,
Yes.
just a little plug in. Actually, it's already started, so it's not even a plug in, but just to look out for future. And it could be in your own area to see a certified mindfulness teacher because there's so many nuances to understanding what mindfulness is. So many people end up just doing the tip of it, which is also a great thing. Like even if you're just breathing or going for mindful walking, and that's great. It gives you a little bit of stress reduction at least. But if you really want to shift, make the deeper shifts in how you think, how you perceive life, how you are experiencing life and showing up and making those deeper changes in how you think, and the way you think then impacts how you show up and act, then I would really recommend working with experienced teachers who can help you then go to the deeper level of identifying. And even if you don't know what the emotion name is, for example, coming back to that, I think it's more about just recognizing this discomfort in the body and where do I feel it. I'll give another fun example, which is of running. So I hate running. I hate exercising basically. I grew up in Kuwait, which was very hot and I didn't grow up like normal children playing in the playground. It was too hot. It was like
Mhm.
120 degrees. So all we did was sit at home, watch TV, eat food, and I'm a nerd. So I read and I love to study and do research and continues to be that way.
You're among friends here. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm married to a marathon runner. So I was always kind of silently comparing myself because he goes running every Wednesday, come rain, shine, hailstorm, whatever, right? I'm like so envious of his kind of commitment and discipline and all of that. And so I tried running, but I hated it and I gave up. So there was a lot of judgment. And one point I meditated on it with self-compassion. I'm like, okay, what's really going on with this running thing or any exercise, but let's take running. And I was able to like look at, oh, I hate running. So I'm like, okay, what do you hate about it? And I'm like, oh, it's so hard and so forth. And when I so there was that emotion of self-judgment. That's not an emotion, but it was more about maybe shame or kind of shame, I would say. Is that so? I didn't even go into what the emotion is. All I did was I'm feeling like I don't like this, and there was self-judgment around it, like I'm lazy. That was a label I'd given myself. So then I was unpacking that and just approaching myself with compassion. And so once you breathe and then say, okay, I hate running, noticing the self doubt, the criticism, the inner critic, you're lazy, hearing my mom's voice, hearing all of that. And so when you see all of that, and then I'm like, okay, so that's that understanding space we're creating. Like, what are the causes and conditions? What's underlying this resistance to movement? And so going to the causes and conditions for my um, re- resentment is the way I grew up. So there's a whole brain wiring of my basic foundational years up to college where I just sat. It was a sedentary life. So my
Mhm.
brain is wired. And so anytime you try to change it, that's called status quo bias. Human brains try to resist change. And so if it's a new habit, new diet, new exercise, new anything, new meditation practice, mindfulness, it's going to be, your brain will resist it in so many different
Yeah.
ways.
This is new. This doesn't seem right. This is yeah.
Yeah, it'll create
Yeah.
very logical reasons. Like, okay, right now is not the time for mindfulness because you have so much to do. You have responsibilities. And The brain will come up with very legit reasons not to do it. So when I looked at it with compassion, I'm like, okay, so if my brain is wired for sedentary, now to rewire it, what do? I have to take the actions to start moving in small doses with love, without judgment. And so I started running as a mindfulness practice to overcome my resistance to running. And then the first time I ran, I was like, oh, this is so hard. So again, that's an automatic reaction. But when I look under that in my body, what does hard feel like? Hard is a concept, right? It's a construct, a label that the mind has given to an experience. Now, looking at in the body, what does hard feel like? So that's mindfulness, looking deeper. And I was like, oh, hard is like my heart is pumping and I'm breathing fast. I'm like, okay, what does hard mean? The heart is pumping. That's a good thing. It's getting stronger.
That's the goal, actually.
That's
Yeah.
the goal, actually. So when you look at it really intimately in your body, what is your experience? Then it's like, oh, it's getting stronger. So, okay, I can keep going. And any point I feel I can't breathe, I can stop. But right now I can breathe. It's just faster, right? So through that, I'm like, no judgment, one step at a time. And I was able to run a mile, which was like huge for me because earlier I had tried and I would just go 100 yards and I'm like, I'm done. Did we do a mile? I'm like, and my husband like, no, that was just like 100 yards or something. So like a very short distance. So
Yeah.
in that way, I was able to, by looking at what is happening in my body, what are my intentions? Like I want to be stronger. I want to have more vitality. That was my motivation. And that allowed me to then go through the discomfort, and it wasn't easy for a very long time. So that's the other key lesson: is discomfort is a guide. Discomfort is your guide. It's not a bad thing. Our automatic reaction to discomfort is you want to avoid it. Oh, it's so hard. It's not for me. Right? Mindfulness, it's so hard. It's not for me. And all these things that are good for us, not all, but many things that are good for us can be
Yes.
hard, and we don't do them.
Yeah. The hard things are the things you're supposed to do almost. Yeah.
Almost, yeah,
Yeah.
almost
Not all of
most.
them. I do
Not
like that
all.
caveat that you added. Not all of them.
Yeah, not all, because yeah, there's some fun things like eating good food. That's
Yeah.
not hard. I love that. I can do
No,
that
yeah.
anytime.
Well, it
Um,
depends on how much and when, but
yes.
yes.
And again, talking about eating, right? I think appreciative joy. So I've broken down mindfulness into these 8 skills because that helps us be mindful in the real world. So appreciative joy for me comes a lot, especially with eating and restaurants.
Hmm.
And basically, it's the idea of delighting in what is good right now. So rather than, oh, when I have XYZ, then I'll be happy and all, this is about finding the joy in us already. So today morning, for example, I made my cup of coffee, and normally I just drink. I love coffee. I can just keep drinking it. But today I was like, okay, stop, no phone, nothing. And I was listening to the music. I'm looking out into the green trees. It's raining and it's springtime. And it's just like so enlivening, and really smelling, tasting the coffee, closing my eyes. And that creates that joy, or rather allows us to touch into that joy that is already available to
Hmm.
us. So, the same way, I think, I don't know how you can recreate or invite maybe customers or clients, whatever you call them, to really appreciate, because often when we're eating, well, it's also social activities, so people are going to be talking and all, but when they're talking, they're not really necessarily tasting. I don't know if your steaks are really good. Do you want people to
They are
talk?
very good. Oh, yes.
Okay, so you want them to taste it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, I don't know what can be done to maybe help people reconnect with that appreciative joy of the food that they're eating. And I need to think
Well,
about that. How about
well,
you?
I think, especially in America, I'm sure most of the
Mm-hmm.
Western world,
Uh-huh.
eating is such a thing. It's not the event itself, but a means to an end,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it also has
Mm.
all these added on additional baggage. People feel like they're eating too much. They have judgment. They don't have time to
Mm.
make good food. And going to
Right.
McDonald's, they feel bad about that too. So there's this
Right.
constant like stream of you eat to live, but it's the package. Yeah. So
Yeah, so many judgments,
taking the
100%.
time to sit down with a loved one over an
Mm,
anniversary and actually enjoy, three-course
mm,
meal is a thing.
mm.
But there's that judgment in the background too. So,
Ooh,
oh,
as you were
yes.
talking, my brain was multitasking. I was listening, but there was a part of me that was like
Mm,
coming up with what are ways to invite people because, like you said, there's so much of judgment and people are just doing it on like they're eating. And I encourage anyone who's watching this, the next thing you eat, just the first three bites at least, if you just close your eyes and give your full attention. We do
mm,
that at raisin eating, mindful raisin eating exercise. And it really changes the experience so much. The raisin, simple raisin, suddenly becomes so much juicier.
mm,
And there's so much more taste and texture. Otherwise, it's like, oh, boring raisin. But when you actually pay attention to it, it's so fulfilling. And that's the metaphor I also use for life, that life becomes so much juicier and delicious when we live with our attention and care rather than just like, sleepwalking through life.
yes.
So I really invite people to do that. But what I was thinking is how maybe let's brainstorm a little bit, and I'm just going to put some seeds for maybe you
Sure.
can put a little sign on the table or something. Thank you for being here or choosing to be here, and we hope that you take the first 5 minutes. I mean, I'm just blabbering, but there
Hmm.
must be a small way or a beautiful way to put a little card on the table for people
Hmm.
to reminding them that thank you for the taking time to be here and invite you to really taste the and so whatever's unique about your place. I'm vegetarian, so I can't offer much
It's
perspective on
fine.
that,
Yeah.
but if it's like grass fed or if it's whatever's unique about your place, if you can invite people to like be invited to take the first bite with your full love and intention or something attention to
Hmm.
that first bite, and so it might even create something for people to talk and remove the judgments, leave the judgments out of the door, and we, really enjoy and we're happy to pack away whatever, so people don't feel like they have to eat everything. I don't know. So I'm just brainstorming with you, but you
Sure,
could
sure.
even maybe chat GPT it. I use Claude a lot for brainstorming these ideas. Like I have an
Yeah.
insight and I have an idea, then I'll be like, okay, what are some cool messages we can put on a restaurant table that will be inviting, not judge, don't add to their judgment already if they don't do it.
Sure.
So it has to be fun, it has to be inviting, non-judging way to get people to
Mhm.
really experience the joy of what you have to offer here.
Sure. And I wouldn't really put anything on the table, but I'm thinking
Okay.
train the server to
Oh,
say, and I was
yeah.
even thinking like
Yeah.
because wine is such a big thing with the meal. So it's like really
Oh.
really just take a sip and take your first bite. Just trust me, pay attention to how well they go together. Something
Ooh,
along those lines.
yes, training even
Yeah.
the servers. I was thinking of that too, the servers. And they could be then some philosophy on their website. So it's all integrating it. So it's not like an isolated one thing, but
Mhm.
if you could create a whole philosophy around appreciative joy is one. I mean, to me, that feels so important around food. We have so much, like you said, so much judgment and we
Yeah.
eat on default. Like
Hmm.
we don't even taste half the food, or 90%
No.
of the food we don't taste. Like, yeah, I just drink my coffee because I like it and it's better than eating
You want a
chocolate.
little caffeine, yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, caffeine doesn't energize me. I have some gene that I can drink coffee and go to sleep right after
Oh,
that.
cool.
I just do it for, I don't know what's going on, but I just do it for the taste and it's warm and it's nice. So,
Mhm.
not very
Um,
mindful. No.
you mentioned that with food, and it did. I wanted to ask you earlier when you were talking self-compassion. Like
Mm,
that seems like such a big unlock. And I feel like that's one of the things that I've struggled with. I'm sure lots of people
mm,
have struggled with. There's a
mm.
voice in your head that's really mean to you. It's almost like a taskmaster telling you to like work harder, do more. You haven't done enough today. And
Right.
how do
Yes.
you get into that self-compassion? Where does that come from?
Oh my God, such a good question. Thank you for asking. Most of us have the inner critic, no matter how successful. I worked with Fortune 500 CEOs, executives, ninth generation business owners. And when you
Mm-hmm.
look at them like, oh, they're so confident, they must be like perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
oh no, every single one has an inner critic that's telling them, you could do better, you could be better somehow, right? So, again, when we don't pay attention to that voice, it's below the radar and it's making us feel a certain way. We end up acting on how we feel. We show up maybe smaller, um, disconnected, and then people feel that vibe and they respond to you, which becomes like a self fulfilling prophecy. And you don't get noticed, you don't get heard, you're not seen because you are showing up that way because you believe that voice. You're just acting on that. So, self compassion is the practice of turning our attention inwards towards our thoughts, our body, emotion, our body sensations, our bodies, our emotions with love and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many ways to do that. Some people find it so hard, so we invite them then, okay, think of a person who loves you unconditionally. It could be a grandmother, could be a niece, nephew, right? And so from their perspective, see yourself like if they're talking to you, let's say I'm struggling with my body issues, it could be like, what is your grandmother saying to you about your body? And or there's a way to go into that, not just directly. You first start with something simple, and we can also practice compassion, first evoking that by thinking of someone you love unconditionally. So it could be a child, a partner. So really feeling that love and that connection and sending out loving kindness wishes. So it's a practice. We're training the brain to rewire for kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do loving kindness, like you go to the gym and you do this exercises. The exercise you would do for compassion building could be sending loving kindness, like to my son, that naturally evokes for me that place of love that I have and compassion. Naturally, we have that innate capacity to be empathetic, compassion. So I'll be like, oh, may you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. May you find joy. So whatever's coming naturally, sending those loving kindness wishes. Now we are created the right conditions where I'm feeling that compassion,
Mm-hmm.
and now I can turn that towards myself. From now that I'm connected, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe. So just doing that. And initially, people may not feel anything and may feel like mechanical, but that's why we want to do it with someone you really feel and then turn it towards. So that's one of the practices. And then as we continue to do this, I have actually the book has six different practices to build compassion.
Okay.
And I created an app which is on to go along with the book. So it's on Deckable. Deckable is the app, and my there are 48 mindfulness micro practices.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are six of them for compassion. So one of them is I see me. And I love that one because it's just about taking time in your day. You could be going for a walk and you're like, I see me. So and often we are waiting for others, like our parents, to see us, to acknowledge the good we've done, or people we love to tell us. But underlying all of that is basically we want our own acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah,
powerful. Yeah.
right. And so for once we are able to love ourselves, so making that time to I see me is like I find it so powerful because I grew up in a collectivist culture. Most of our attention is pleasing other people. And I think I see that in the West also. We have a pleasing, like we want to be seen as good people. So focus is on others. And this is about, no, I see me with all my goodness, with all my values, with all my shadow sides. I see my inner critic. So even your inner critic, you befriend rather than fighting it and defeating it. It's more like, oh, I see you. You're here. Because the inner critic is trying to also defend you and say, hey, it's like your parent who was very bad parent, did bad parenting, but the intentions were good. They
A
messed you up
helicopter
probably.
helicopter parent that actually just wanted you to be safe, wanted you to find
Yes.
a secure job and a good life. Yeah.
Exactly. So the same way we can be compassionate towards the inner critic and say, "Hey, I see you. I see what you're doing here. Let's talk about it a little bit." If it's like, "Oh, you're not good at this, blah blah blah," I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit." Last time I remembered, I wrote that book. So I have a PhD. I had a PhD. I published in top journals, and yet that inner critic was like, "Oh, you suck. You could be doing
Yes.
better. You have only what so many followers. Look at the other person. They have." So it's like
Mhm.
creates all those kind of pressures. But when you don't look at the inner critic, it has power over you.
Mhm.
But when you turn towards it with that compassion and love, and okay, let's talk, and
Yeah.
then you can change that. And when you change your mindset, your perspective, perception about yourself, you're going to show up differently and people are going to respond to you differently. So,
No. Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah. I'm very much I like to go into the tactics of how to do it because I feel like a lot
mm,
of my life is just being very confused on like I don't know what that means though. Like what do I do
yeah,
tomorrow? Yeah. Um
right,
yeah,
right.
I wanted to really touch on the self-compassion. I think there is a large presence in restaurants and bars, kind of a
Mm,
sense that the job is a little lower skilled. And I think a lot of people, even if they wouldn't admit
mm,
to it, feel ashamed of working in that industry
mm,
because it is often either people who've done it their whole life or younger people who are
mm,
doing it to fill in a gap before they go get their real career after.
right,
A lot of people I talk to are just like, I didn't think I'd be a server for the last
right,
10 years. And so I think
right,
like having that, like, how do you develop that compassion and understanding in this
right,
industry where you might actually agree with that voice? And that's even its
right.
own special hell, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I
Yeah.
think the appreciative joy is like it disrupts our negativity bias. So negativity bias is where we look at all the negatives in a situation rather
Mm.
than looking at the positives. So appreciative joy is a practice, the gratitude practice is about, recognizing, like I said, we talked about it briefly earlier, but the practice would look like, okay, so one is I'm a server and is there a choice or do I want something? It might be like, okay, I'm just going to do this for 10 years, okay, or 5 years or 3 years, whatever.
Mhm.
So once you've figured out, I'm not, because we don't want to, there's something called spiritual bypassing, which is where we ignore our emotions and our experience using mindfulness or spiritual language. So, like, oh, everything is okay. I'm so lucky to have this job, and everyone is out there hungry. And so, we're using intellectual thinking to bypass and pacify that inner critic, right? And that's not what mindfulness is. So
Mm.
you want to actually be very intimately connected with yourself. And that's mindfulness, that awareness you're bringing, that non judging awareness to how you're actually feeling. And so looking at, okay, I'm a little ashamed of this job that I'm doing. So really looking at what that's bringing up, feeling, making room to feel it in the body and not try to fix it. As soon as we feel it, we want to fix it. So no,
Oh yeah. Oh,
tell the
that is my number one trait. Yes.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
many of us are problem solvers anyway, which is a good trait to have. You're like, okay, let's not worry about, let's get into what can we do mode. So, but in mindfulness, you want to take a little bit of time to create space to really see not just surface level what's the judgment, but what's below that. And it might be, actually, I really enjoy it. It's what my parents think of me that's bothering
Mm.
me. I love,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah, that's a
I
good one.
love,
Yeah.
yeah, so I love the flexibility. I love being with people. I love food. I love being around food. And so, whatever it is you're doing, so it's about going what's below it to see where is that judgment coming from, what are the cause and conditions for that, and then looking at what are the things I love about. So being very objective. Oh, I do love that actually about it. I love the flexibility and even though I'm going to be doing this because I want to pursue a career after that or do something else, so that's fine.
Mm.
But in this moment, as you show up to work, how can you be fully confident in your choice because you made it? It's
Mm.
your life and you're choosing to be in this place of work. And you can do it with love, with joy for what the things, the 8 things you love about it, and the 2 things you don't. That's fine. You
Mm.
can acknowledge that. Or you can show up like hating it and resisting and shame and guilt and all of that. So it's a choice.
Yeah. That's powerful too. I think from here on out, I'm going to try and remember that inner critic
Mm.
voice may not always be a unified voice, but I like that
Mm.
idea. It's a little bit of
Mm.
you, it's a little bit of your parents, probably, maybe a little
Oh,
grandma's
yeah.
in there, and like maybe your friend from high
Absolutely.
school. And yeah, so
Right.
yeah,
Right. Who are on Wall Street maybe and
yeah.
earning way more.
A
So,
book you read once, and all that wrapped into one.
yes, yes. And so appreciative joy can be a practice. Again, it's a habit. You
Mhm.
want to live your life with a negativity bias, only focusing on what's wrong, or you can make it a practice. So even those friends who landed those amazing jobs, and there's a little bit of envy there. And, like when I was writing my book, it took me 5 or 6 years to write it. And meanwhile, there were people way less experienced than me in my mind. And I was like, and they were like, oh, bestseller. And I would read it on Facebook. I'm like, ugh, that thing would happen. And I'm like, and then I would be judging myself. Oh, I shouldn't be jealous because I'm mindful. And so there is that. But it happens, that reaction happened, that we
Mhm.
compare. And then I'll be either like, oh, they don't even deserve it. Like, how did she get it? Sort of there's an inner voice that's going. And so mindfulness would be to pay attention to that voice and see if I just let it go, then I would just maybe give a like or love even and say, hey, congratulations. But it's like a fake one. I didn't really feel it. So
Mhm.
instead, what this was actually happened was where I paused to tune into that feeling of jealousy and envy. And there's a difference between the two. I don't want to get into that. But anyway, I felt that. And then I'm like, okay, let me just make a little more space for what's happening. And then it was more like I don't remember the exact process that led me there, but it was more about paying attention to that rather than pushing it aside and saying I shouldn't be jealous. It was more confronting my own jealousy, looking at it. And then the thoughts related to that jealousy were like, oh, she doesn't even deserve, she's not even that good. I'm like, how do I know that? I don't know that person's life journey. I barely know her on Facebook. And so me, yeah, if she's written a book and she's reached here, clearly she's put in effort and work and dedication and love and all of that. So I don't know what her journey is. So I just respect her journey and honor her journey for getting her to write a book. And and then what can I learn? If she could do it, what can I learn from her? So you can use that moment to motivate yourself. Oh, if she can do it, yeah, I want to do it too. So that
Yeah.
right understanding about the person's journey and not my assumptions, that's curiosity skill, which is confirmation bias. We only see things that confirm what we believe. So I could have just looked, okay, look at her. She's so well off. She doesn't even deserve it. She just used her money. Like I have my own rant around it,
Of course.
my own
Yeah.
judgments and stories. And I can disrupt that storyline and bring curiosity, but do I really know what is her journey as a human being? And then at some point I read about this person who had lost her brother. I'm like, oh my God, like this person has gone through a lot of tragedy and suffering. And here I was sitting there, oh, what.
How dare
So
she? Yes.
yeah, exactly. I'm clearly better than her. then, so that's that habit of first breathing, and that's the second piece of cultivating insight, cultivating understanding of what is really going on below the surface of what we're seeing.
Yeah,
And then
it's another version of you saying I see you too. To that part.
yeah,
Yes, I see.
yes.
Yeah.
I love it that you caught on because actually, so I see me is one card, and the other opposite is I see you. And you just said that. I
Oh,
love
really?
it. Yeah, so the other card is which goes, so first we want to see ourselves, what are we feeling, our needs, but then the other card that helps is I see you as a human
Mhm.
being and not just my judgments of you based on 3 things I noticed about you, but really knowing that shared humanity we have as human beings. We're all doing the best that we can. So,
Wow. I think Honestly, that's a great place to leave it.
Awesome.
I could talk to you for all day, I feel like, but I know
Likewise.
at the beginning we said we only had about an hour, so I don't want to hold
Yeah.
up too much of your
Thank you.
time.
Appreciate that.
Before I let you go, where should the listener follow you? Where can they find you?
Hmm.
Do you have a preferred website, or how do you like
Yes.
people to find you?
So right now I've started a Substack called Sama Life, and I'm introducing articles, micro practices, and things that people can really benefit from their real world practice. And if you want to sign up for my class or interest, you can join my mailing list on knowyourmind.training.
Mhm.
That's my website. And check out the Deckable app because that's like a companion, a mindful companion in your, and there are like 48 micro practices for appreciative joy. We talked about I see me, I see you. Then there are appreciative joy practices in that multiply goodness. Uh, my body loves me, love it back. So there are all these different practices there to build these qualities of the mind. And that's undeckable. But all of that is on my website and my book, of
Mhm.
course, Return to Mindfulness. So you can find all of that on my website, which is knowyourmind.training.
Awesome. Yeah. And those of you who are listening in the car, all of those will be in the show notes. So don't worry if you didn't have a chance to write that down.
Yay.
Hey, thank you for taking a moment to come and talk to us today. I felt like we
Mhm.
learned a lot, and I feel like I've grown a little bit too. So
Thank you. That makes me so happy, Andrew. And thank you for the work you're doing and bringing to life your passions and creating this podcast. So thank you to you.
absolutely. If you enjoyed this, please leave a review, like, share. The more people that we can reach, the more people we can help, and the more people we can bring this message to, a message of hope and possibilities in the service industry. Everyone who listens, thank you. You are my people. Keep rocking on and have a great service. And please come back and listen again. We send out new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. How about that? All right, see you soon.